in the
Yes.
Hall of Harmony, and the
Okay.
topic is the Mahabharat War and Sri Aurobindo, and an inner conversation which Nirodha had with Sri Aurobindo,
Yeah.
and about Mahabharata.
Okay.
Now, I am reading a little part first of the his conversation. So that is where he tells him, go and read this passage from Essays on the Gita.
Yeah.
Um,
Good morning, Shilpa.
Sri Aurobindo tells Nirodha, well, that is what India has come to today. See the condition of the world. Russia, America, Israel, Nasser, Mao Zedong. Well, really, our Indira Gandhi is hard to put to it to manage her house. She looks with one eye at Russia, with another eye at America, and perhaps with both eyes at China. Laughter. And this is our position today. So, where is the gospel of non-violence leading? No, you can't have non-violence still. He did not complete the sentence. He went on. Have you read my essays on the Gita? Nirod Baran. Yes, I have read it. Read it again and look with a fresh eye at the passage where I have dealt with this question.
Yeah.
Then he left. So Nirodha went home and he read the passage. And I'm now reading out this passage from the essays on the Gita.
Yeah.
You can
No
tell the
real.
page number. You can tell the page number. We can follow on the.
No, but he has not given the page number. I'm sorry. Because this is Nirodha's talk in the Hall of Harmony. So he does not mention the page number.
I'm.
No real peace can be till the heart of man deserves peace. The law of Vishnu cannot prevail till the debt to Rudra is paid. To turn aside then and preach to a still uninvolved mankind the law of love and oneness. This is an important sentence. To turn aside then and preach to a still uninvolved mankind the law of love and oneness. Teachers of the law of love and oneness there must be, for by that way must come the ultimate salvation. But not till the time spirit in man is ready can the inner and ultimate prevail over the outer and immediate reality. I'm reading this sentence again.
Yeah.
But not till the time spirit in man is ready can the inner and ultimate prevail over the outer and immediate reality. Christ and Buddha have come and gone, but it is Rudra who still holds the world in the hollow of his hand. And meanwhile, the fierce forward labor of mankind, tormented and oppressed by the powers that are profiteers of egoistic force and their servants, cry out for the sword of the hero of the struggle and the word of its prophet. Now, this is Nirodha's explanation. So, this is the message interpreted by Sri Aurobindo. Perhaps you know that Sri Aurobindo said that when he was in jail, the Gita was put into his hand. Not literally, mind you, but in a subtle manner, as things are given to you in your dreams, in your visions. So he told us that this Gita was given to him by Sri Krishna. And if you read essays on the Gita, which I recommend very strongly to all of you, those particularly who are grown up, you will have no doubt that it was Sri Aurobindo himself who was Sri Krishna. Who else could be the author of the luminous and revealing interpretation that he gives? The intimate and understanding tone in which he expresses himself. and the deeper secret undiscovered by anybody yet that he lays bare. There have been so many interpretations of the Gita, partial all of them, but none has that Uttama Rahasyam, the supreme secret, which is his alone, because he is dealing with his own ancient message. For that matter, you will see that any other book he has written is all out of personal experience. Take the narrative poem Baji Prabhu. In the description of the battle, you seesaw of fortune, the flight of the soldiers, the forward movement of them. The description is given in the minutest detail. It would have been impossible for any imaginative writer to provide such intricate movements of the battle. So, also about all other books. In his past lives, he has played so many roles and he has now relived them, brought them out. Essays on the Gita, particularly, is one of the most fascinating books that I've ever read. We have no doubt that Sri Krishna was born as Sri Aurobindo and carried on the same struggle even in our day, inwardly and outwardly. From the higher inner chamber in which he lived for so many years, all along, not as a fighter, not as a charioteer, but as a commander of a great spiritual power which knows no time and space, and by the marshalling of that power, he has moved. He has guided the world chariot. When Hitler was in the ascendant, all of you know that it was the mother and Sri Aurobindo who championed the cause of the Allies. And the mother declared it was her war. She even said in one of her most firm notices, those who speak against the Allies are traitors. At that time, Churchill and de Gaulle stood as champions, the Pandavas, against the Hitlerite Kauravas. And after so many ignominious defeats, ultimately, you know what happened. The Allies were triumphant. The fascists were crushed. The Japanese were routed.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a very big thing, but I just read the important passage which Sri Aurobindo asked Nirodha to go and read.
Yes. Okay. So the main thing, what is it? There are so many people who talk about non-violence and there should be peace and all that. That's fine as an ideal, but the question is, can we achieve that at the present condition? So Srimba is very categorically saying that it cannot be achieved unless man changes his character. So long as he remains in the ignorance, the law of war will continue to exist. And it is necessary also, because when there is evil in the world, then you have to war against it. So war is necessary. When there is no evil in the world, then war will not be necessary. And when will that be? That will be because when the supramental race will come, in the supramental race, there will be no evil, then war can go away. But so long as man is in his ignorance and is subject to dualities, duality means good and evil. And if evil is there, it has to be fought, and therefore war is necessary. That's what he's saying basically. That war will continue to exist so long as man is ignorant and ego driven and subject to the dualities. That's what he's saying. In other words, war will not disappear at the lower level, the lower hemisphere, the war will always continue to be there in some form or other. But when the supramental race comes, there'll be no evil there. Therefore, there'll be no war among them. It will be, even the contraries will be harmonized. That's what he's saying. And there's one thing, when the supramental race comes, its influence is very likely to percolate into the lower levels, and then man maybe will war will be replaced by other forms of competition. Okay, for instance, uh, playing cricket is too different. So it's some sort of a war, but a very benign war. Okay. So confrontation, competition, okay, all these things may be there, but the violent war, physical war, killing each other, may likely disappear when the supramental race achieves, because the higher is always influencing the lower. Of course, the lower also resists, okay, and puts up a resistance. But it is likely that at the lower levels in mankind, war may disappear even when he is in ignorance. But will it disappear at the even lower level of the animals? We don't know, okay? Because animals do fight. So, but when supramental race comes, it is quite likely that the war, as we understand it, physical war, will disappear even in humanity. It is possible. But as I said, competition, it will be replaced by competition. All this he has dealt with also in the Life Divine last chapter. Okay, so very interesting what Jasmine read, and we thank her for it. And Tarika, I'll give you the exact reference afterwards. I'll send it to you by. Uh, you are on WhatsApp now. Tarika is on WhatsApp. I'll send it to you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I am on WhatsApp. Yeah.
Okay, then I'll send it to you. Okay.
Mm.
But it's in your name or in Vikram's name?
No, no, my name only.
Okay, okay. Then I'll send it to you, the reference. Because Yasmin could not give the exact reference, but I'll give you the reference. Okay?
Rangada, Rangada,
Yeah, tell me.
could you please post the reference in this chat only?
Oh, yes, excellent.
Right.
That is well. I'll do that.
Then we all can see it.
Okay, I'll do that.
I'd
I'll-
also like to see the
May I,
reference and
may
read
I
it.
interrupt? May I interrupt?
Yes,
If you
yes, sure.
just take Mother India of October, October 2022, the recent Mother India, and that whole article of Nirodha is written, whereby Sri Aurobindo explains what happened to Draupadi, why he didn't help her before. So if you read that whole article, it's more interesting than just reading this part.
okay.
So
That's
it's there in Mother India of October. So
But
if you
I'm
India-
sure in 1 minute. In Mother India, the reference will also be given from where it is taken. Nahi, Rangada?
no, it's not
No,
given.
maybe not.
If
Maybe
it was given, I would have read it.
Oh, acha,
Because
acha,
Nirodha
okay.
said that he just went home and he just read this passage.
not. So, October 22, huh?
Yeah,
2000?
last month's Mother India.
Okay, okay.
And you just go to the Mahabharat war and Sri Aurobindo. So
Yeah.
it's worth it reading the whole article,
Uh,
where he also compares Nirodha to Gandhi and says, what are you talking about non-violence and all? I mean, it's a wonderful talk of Nirodha.
yeah,
And
okay.
his inner conversation with Sri Aurobindo, where
Yeah.
he's now asking Sri Aurobindo, okay, why were you so cruel with the Pandavas? He says, because those whom I love the most will get the most pain also. Otherwise, how can you test your love? So to test the love, he gave the Pandavas maximum suffering and maximum pain. So it's anyone interested in Gita should read Nirodha's talk with Aurobindo.
But this is Nirodha's talk.
Yes, in the Hall of Harmony.
Okay, there is a collection coming out. I think Sudhadi's. Okay, okay. Now I'll understand.
No, but Mother India is given, no? So you just read
okay,
from
okay.
last month's Mother India.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. So then shall we? It is a very interesting reference and is very necessary because everybody speaks very glibly and very easily. Oh, there should be no war. There should be this. We are going on talking. First of all, it was the League of Nations. Then that League of Nations failed. Therefore, we put in the United Nations. And Sridhar has also discussed this in the postscript chapter of the Ideal of Human Unity. He has discussed this because even now the United Nations is very faulty. It gives we have the veto power for 4 or 5 nations, 5 nations. And that veto power, so long as it is there, power politics will continue to exist. Okay. So that has to become real democratic. And that will be corrected later on in the forecast. Okay. So a day will come when that veto power will disappear and everybody will have the right to vote. That will be there. So, shall we start reading now what we have to read today?
Yeah, shall I read?
We
Yes.
are on page 77,
And the para?
Sankhya and Yoga. And the
Yes.
para is, but what
But
of
what
the
of-
one self immutable?
That's right. So, let
We
us read.
have to read it. We have to read it.
Yeah. Now, just 1 second. Sunki has put something on chat. She says page 386 of Essays on the Gita. Now, what is that, Sunki? What is that reference?
That's the part. The Rudra and Vishnu.
Oh,
The
right. So,
Gita part. Yes, yes,
there
yes.
you are. Everybody has that. Okay, so she has already put it on the net, so you can check that. Okay, 386 of essays on the Gita. Very good. So I don't need to do that anymore. And also Mother India. You can also read Mother India. Mother India also, Sunki, is on the net. Okay, so there's a soft copy. It's available. So you can, Sunki also can read it in Korea. Okay.
Yes.
So,
In the ashram website, you mean?
yeah, ashram site, correct. You go to the
Okay,
ashram
okay.
site and go to Mother India, October.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes, okay,
you'll find it. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's start reading. But what of that one self immutable?
I'll read Rangada.
Okay, go ahead.
But what of the one self immutable, immobile, eternally free, with which the Gita began? That is free from all change or involution in change, avikarya, unborn, unmanifested, the Brahman, yet it is that by which all this is extended. Therefore, it would seem that the principle of the Ishvara is in its being. If it is immobile, it is yet the cause and lord of all action and mobility. But how? And what of the multiplicity of conscious beings in the cosmos? They do not seem to be the Lord, but rather very much not the Lord, Anisha, for they are subject to the action of the three gunas and the delusion of the ego sense. And if, as the Gita seems to say, they are all the one self, how did this involution, subjection, and delusion come about, or how is it explicable except by the pure passivity of the Purusha? And whence the multiplicity? Or how is it that the one self in one body and mind attains to liberation while in others it remains under the delusion of bondage? These are difficulties which cannot be passed by without a solution.
Yeah. So, what's the problem he's discussing? Okay, he's discussing that Gita is accepting Sankhya philosophy and yet it also rejects some principles. So, that's a bit of a problem that has to be solved. And how does the Gita solve it? Okay, that's what he's discussing. Earlier, he has said that the Sankhya philosophy admits that there is multiplicity of souls. Purusha is many, in fact, infinite. Prakriti is one. The Prakriti is the universal nature. That is one. For everybody, universal nature is one. Whether you are in America or you are in India or you are in China, universal nature is one. In fact, even when you are in space, even if you are standing on the moon, okay, and tomorrow we may even stand on Mars, but it is still nature. Everything, the whole cosmos, the physical world is nature. So nature is one, says the Sankhya philosophy, but the Purushas are many. Okay. But Gita is saying the Purusha is one. So this is the problem that is discussing. Okay. So, but what of that one self, immutable, immobile, eternally free, with which the Gita began? Because the Gita is a Vedantic work, and the Vedanta is a Advaita. There is only one ultimate Purusha, only one. There is nothing else. So how to explain this? Before we read, I just tell you that there are many grades. No? So at each grade, you see a different aspect of the reality. Okay. When you are in the lower level, you are in level 1. In the physical world, you see the many. You don't see the self of everybody, but you see multiplicity. So when you go to the higher level of consciousness, you start seeing that there's a connection between them. They're all really one, but seems to be divided. Okay. Avibhaktam, vibhaktam eva sita. That is the words in the Gita. Although it is undivisible, okay, undividable if you want, the English may be wrong, but it is really one. Okay. It's like a so, the other day someone gave a very interesting image. Pomegranate, okay? It's one, but you open it and there are infinite number of seeds in it. The one and the many are always linked together. The other image that I usually like to give is a picture, and you want to make a jigsaw puzzle out of it, okay? So you cut the picture, put lines on the picture where you want to cut, okay? You are still seeing the oneness. You are seeing one picture. Now do the cutting, okay? If you cut it, okay, and you are still seeing the picture, but you are seeing also the lines. This corresponds to the second level of the spirit, of the supramental status. Then separate the line from the whole picture wherever you have cut, separate it by 1 centimeter, okay? Now the picture seems to be a little broken, but if you stand far enough, you will still see the whole picture. In other words, you are seeing the picture whole as well as the parts. Now, instead of 1 centimeter, divide all of them by 1 meter. Okay. Now you don't see the picture anymore, you see only the parts. So this is the image that will explain to you how, depending on your level of consciousness, you can see multiplicity or you can see oneness. The higher you go, the oneness is there. In the supramental world, you see both. You see the oneness as well as the multiplicity. In the physical world, we see multiplicity very clearly. Everybody is different. But when you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, level 2, you start seeing the oneness. That's more important than the divisions. Then you go to the supramental level, there is no contradiction between the one and the many. Okay? That's what Sridhar is going to discuss. And how does the Gita solve the problem? That's what we read just now, and we'll go through each sentence. Okay? So, but what of the one self, immutable, immobile, eternally free, with which the Gita began? Because this is the Brahman consciousness. When your consciousness goes out of your body, mind, life and goes to the Brahman consciousness, this is what you see. You see that there is only one self, which seems to be divided. It's not divided, but seems to be divided. Okay? But what of the one self? Immutable. The words are very clear. Self, immutable, immobile, eternally free, with which the Gita began. That is free from all change or involution in change. Okay? Avikarya. Vikara is deformation and deformation of the form. Okay? Avikarya. So, unborn, it cannot be deformed. Unborn, unmanifested. Unborn, it has not yet come down into manifestation. Okay? It is above manifestation. Unmanifested, the Brahman, yet it is that which by which all this is extended. That one Brahman extends itself. It is one, but it oozes out of itself the many. Okay? It's like the seed which oozes out of itself the tree. Okay? The seed is one, but it oozes out leaves, flowers, bark, okay, fruits, flowers, branches, twigs, everything. So that's a one becoming the many. The word extended is very interesting. Picture that to yourself.
Yeah.
The one is
Is this
extending.
not
Uh, Pardon?
is this extended is not from Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam?
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
not Gita.
Yeah. Sarvamidam tatam, that's right. It's there in the Upanishads also. It's a very common idea in the Vedantic philosophy. Therefore, it would seem that the principle, just one second. Yeah, okay. So, I'm reading the next one, okay? Yeah. Therefore, it would seem that the principle of the Ishvara is in its being, okay? If it is immobile, it is yet the cause and lord of all action and mobility. If it is immobile, it is still, it produces something. How can it, if it's immobile and avikarya, how can it produce? It's a contradiction. So Sendra is asking, but how? So he is explaining what the Gita solves. And what of the multiplicity of conscious beings in the cosmos? Okay. There are so many souls, there are so many selves, there are so many jivatmans. They do not seem to be the Lord, but rather very much they not the Lord, Anisha. Isha is Lord, Anisha is the not the Lord. In other words, you are a slave. Now that's a very interesting word because so many people get the name Anisha. It's so common in India. So why should you call yourself a slave? That's a question of grammar, and Tarika will know about it. Anisha is a compound. Okay, it's a samasa. When you say an isha, not Lord, but it can be also interpreted as something else. Yasya isha nasti. Okay, anisha, sahan anisha. It's a bahuvrihi samasa. Okay, yasya isha nasti. So one who doesn't have an isha, one who doesn't have a master, what is he? He is himself the master. So that's the meaning. That's why people use the word anisha. But here, Shabda is using in the other sense. Okay, not the Lord. Okay, for they are subject to the action of the three gunas and the delusion of the ego sense. So long as you are in the subject to the three gunas, that is the body, mind, life, you are identifying yourself with your body, mind, life, you are in ignorance, and then you see the multiplicity. You see the many Purushas. Okay. So, or they are subject to the action of the three gunas and the delusion of the ego sense. And if the Gita seems to say they are all the one self, how did this involution, subjection, and delusion come about? Or how is it explicable except by the pure passivity of the Purusha? How can that be? Okay. So, how is it explicable? Except by the pure Purusha of the Purusha. So, and whence the multiplicity? How does the multiplicity come about? Or how is it that the one self in one body and mind attains to liberation while in others it remains under the delusion of bondage? Because if all the yogis who have attained salvation, who have attained mukti, the others are not attaining mukti. So how is it that the self is one? If the self was really one, then one man's liberation would liberate everybody else. So that's a problem. The problem is solved by the analysis. Okay, he says that there are three levels. That's the next one we are going to read. The three levels are the mutable Purusha, the immutable Purusha, and the Uttama Purusha. That answers the problem. Okay, that is what we will read. So, at the level one, what we call normally level one, you are identified with your body, mind, life. You are in Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. You are Triguna. You are subject to the three gunas. Then you are Kshara Purusha, Kshara, mutable Purusha. Your psychic being is actually moving and developing all through lives. So it is Kshara, it is moving. But when you go to level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, what we call level 2, the 4 planes. I keep repeating so that it becomes very picture settles in your mind. Higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind over mind. There is the level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, which sometimes Sri also calls the ideal planes. Okay, he also sometimes calls them the ideal planes. So these planes, you see the oneness, and so it becomes the Akshara Purusha. So Akshara, not mutable at all, immutable. So they is using the word immutable and permanently free, okay, and one. But so the problem, there is a problem. At this level you are seeing multiplicity, at that level you are seeing one. So when you go to the third level, the Ishvara consciousness, okay, the Gita uses the word Uttama Purusha. So there are 3 Purusha levels. Kshara Purusha, lowest, Akshara Purusha, the immutable Brahman consciousness, and the Uttama Purusha. Uttama Purusha to Anya, it says. It's a different one. So there you see the perfect, the harmony of everything. So that's how the problem is solved by the Gita. So we can read, what's the time? 22. So we've got 15 minutes. Actually, um, yeah, slightly less than 15 minutes. But we can read the next paragraph. The Gita answers. Okay, how does it answer? So Tarika read. Now someone else can read. We decide quickly who has to read. If Archana is capable of reading, she can read.
Shall I read?
Okay.
The Gita answers them in its later chapters by an analysis of Purusha and Prakriti, which belongs in new elements very proper to a Vedic yoga, but alien to the traditional Sankhya. It speaks of 3 Purushas, or rather a triple status of the Purusha. The Upanishad, in dealing with the truths of Sankhya, seems sometimes to speak only of 2 Purushas. There is one unborn of 3 colors, their text, the eternal feminine, the principle of Prakriti, with its 3 gunas, ever creating. There are unborn 2 Purushas, of whom one cleaves to and enjoys her, the other abandons her because he has enjoyed all her enjoyments. In another verse, they are described as 2 birds on one tree, eternally your companions, one of whom eats the fruits of the tree, the Purusha in nature, enjoying her cosmos. The other eats not, but watches his fellow, the silent witness, withdrawn from the enjoyment. When the first sees the second and knows that all its is greatness, then is delivered from sorrow. The point of view in the 2 verses is different, but they have a common implication. One of the bird is the eternally silent, unbound self, or Purusha, by whom all this is extended, and he regards the cosmos he has extended, but is aloof from it. The other is the Purusha involved in Prakriti. The first verse indicates that the 2 are the same, represent different states, found and liberated, of the same conscious being. For the second unborn has descended into the enjoyment of nature and withdrawn from her. The other verse bring out what we would not gather from the former, that in its higher status of unity, the self is for whatever free, inactive, unattached, though it descends in its lower being into the multiplicity of the creatures of Prakriti and withdraws from it by reversion in any individual creature to the higher status. This theory of the double status of the one conscious soul opens a door, but the process of the multiplicity of the one is still obscure.
So he is explaining by the 3 levels of consciousness. Okay, so it refers actually to the chapter 5 in the Gita, verses 16 and 17. I'm just reading out once, and then we will see what he's saying. Okay, I'm breaking up the Sandhi and reading. Okay, Dvau imo purushau. There are 2 Purushas. Loke, Kshara, Akshara evacha. So the Kshara is a lower one. Dvau imo purushau loke. In the world, there are 2 Purushas. Kshara Akshara Evacha. Kshara Sarvani Bhutani. All the Bhutani, all the created creatures, all the creatures are Kshara. Okay? Kutaso, Kutaso, Kutastha. That means the seated on the summit. Kuta is the summit. Seated on the summit, Akshara Uchyate. The one who is sitting on the above, that is the Akshara Uchyate. He is spoken of as the Akshara. Then Uttama Purusha to Anya. Okay. Paramatma iti Udahita. Paramatma. So he is the Uttama Purusha and he is separate, he is different. Paramatma iti Udahita. Yo Lokatrayam Avishya Bibharti Avyaya Ishvara. Who yo Lokatrayam Avishya, who entering into the physical world. Here he has used the word Avishya, entering into, not in a sense extending itself also, but the word is not extended, entering into. Lokatrayam. Lokatrayam, matter, life and mind. It comes down, coming and supports it. Bibharti, it supports. And who is supporting? Avyaya Ishvara. The Ishvara at the third level is entering into the physical world and supporting it. These are the chapter 5, verse 16 and 17. So, this is the explanation that the concept of the Ishvara, the third level, is not there in the Sankhya. Therefore, there is a problem, but the problem is solved by the Gita by insisting on the third level. Okay, that there are 3 levels, and depending on which level you are, you see in a different way. So the Sankhya is not wrong. Okay, it does see multiplicity, and that we can see that in the physical world. That when one person is experiencing something, the other is not. Okay, but that's a Kshara Purusha. Okay, so we go now to the beginning of the paragraph that we read just now. We have about 7 minutes left. We'll try and see what it is. But there are a lot of references to the Upanishads, and so we'll have to probably do this again, but we will start. There is a reference to the Gita, then there is a reference to the Mundaka Upanishad, okay? Then there is also a reference to the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. So the image of the 2 birds sitting is Upanishadic. It's in the Upanishad. There is repetition sometimes in some of the Upanishads, and we'll see that. We may not be able to do that today, but we'll do that next time. Okay, so I'm reading. The Gita answers them in its later chapters by an analysis of Purusha and Prakriti, which brings in new elements very proper to a Vedantic yoga, but alien to the traditional Sankhya. The Sankhya does not speak of the third level. The Vedanta speaks of the third level. Okay. But you must know one thing, in the Vedanta, in the Upanishads, all these truths are given, but they are not mapped out, like Sri Aurobindo has mapped out very clearly. Okay, he speaks of the vertical planes and also the horizontal planes. He has given all this in. He has actually even drawn diagrams. Okay, so he is very, very clear about the mapping of the universal planes of consciousness, horizontal as well as vertical. Okay, so the Vedantic yoga is different from the Sankhya Veda. Are they wrong? No. The Sankhya philosophy is right at the lower levels. Okay, that's all. It speaks of 3 Purushas, or rather a triple status of the Purusha. Now note that, very interesting. They are not 3 Purushas separate. They are the same ones seen in different ways, or you can say also developed in 3 ways. Like we discussed the other day, the Kshara Purusha is the baby. Okay, he is a small baby, 7-pound baby, and he is ignorant of the world. Then you grown up, then you get consciousness, you are able to, but still your ignorance is still there. That's the Akshara Purusha. Okay. Finally, you become a Siddha, you become an old person with wisdom and realization, and the same person, okay, The Akshara, the Kshara and the Uttama Purusha are all the same at different levels of development. Okay, that's why Siddhartha is saying triple status, not three Purushas, but a triple status of the Purusha. The Purusha is the same, growing up. Okay, if you want, going higher and higher in consciousness. Then he is speaking of the Upanishads. Okay, the Upanishads, in dealing with the, why he is saying Upanishads? Because the reference is there in two. Okay, there is a Mundaka Upanishad, I have given the reference also, and there is a Shvetashvatara Upanishad, and even in the Rig Veda it is there. The same image in different words. Okay, and I have the references also. If anyone is interested, I can give you the references. But they are all the same image of the two birds. Okay, in another verse, sorry, the Upanishads, in dealing with the truths of Sankhya, seem sometimes to speak only of two Purushas. Seem, because the images are there only as two birds sitting on the same tree. There is one unborn of three colors, says the text. The eternal feminine principles of Prakriti, which is three gunas. There are the three colors. Okay? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Okay? So, there is one unborn of three colors. It is subject to Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, says the text. The eternal feminine principle of Prakriti with its three gunas, ever creating. Okay? The nature in the physical world is going on creating new species, new plants, new flora, fauna. There's no end to it. Okay? We don't see the new creation because it's a very slow process and it is spread. The mutation of cells takes place over several hundred years. But we don't see. Suddenly we discover that there's a new species of frog, a new species of bird, a new species of different, even microbes. You know that, na? COVID, for instance, that went on mutation. Na? There are so many mutations of that COVID. Recently, we have been reading about it. So mutation is always going on. That's a create. That's what he's saying. Okay, he's saying ever creating, constantly changing, mutating itself. There are two unborn, two Purushas, of whom one cleaves to and enjoys her. The other abandons her because he has enjoyed all her enjoyments. So this is the soul which is in the body mind life is enjoying life but also suffering. It is subject to pain and pleasure. It is subject to happiness and unhappiness both. And it is enjoying the fruits. The word enjoy is to undergo, to experience. Okay, in that sense you have to take it. Okay. That's the one. There are two birds. So the bird which is imprisoned in the body mind life is a lower bird sitting on the lower branch, and the one which has escaped and gone out is sitting on the higher branch. Okay. So in another verse, they are described as two birds on one tree, eternally yoked companions. They are always yoked. One of whom eats the fruits of the tree, the Purusha in nature, okay, your soul in body mind life, enjoying her cosmos. Her other eats not, but watches his fellow. Eating not means immutable, and watches means sakshi, witness. Just watching without, the silent witness. Withdrawn from all enjoyment. Now note that when you go to the higher mind, there is neither enjoyment nor is there any suffering. You are free from suffering, but you are also free from enjoyment. So you are absolutely calm and quiet and no mutation at all, immutable. So sometimes when the children are told this, they say, my God, then what's the use? When all the variety and the spice of life, it becomes a very blank, dull thing. That's what they answer. Okay, that is true to a certain extent. It's a stage, and when you go to a higher level, everything can become enjoyment. Okay, so that's a different stage. But it is not something negative. It's a tremendous peace and calm that you get. Because in the physical world, okay, you are free from all pain. It's a huge benefit. Okay, There is a very calm, peaceful atmosphere when you enter the Brahman consciousness. You are not affected by anything at all. That's what he's saying. Silent witness, withdrawn from all enjoyment. When the first sees the second and knows that all is his greatness, then he is delivered from sorrow. The second one, sitting on the higher branch, is there is no sorrow at all. There may not be enjoyment also. Uh, he says the uh, withdrawn from all enjoyment he has used earlier, and now he is saying delivered from sorrow also. So this is the Akshara Purusha. The point of view in the two verses is the same. He is talking of the difference in the Mundaka Upanishad and the Shvetashvatara. Okay, there are slight differences in the language, but the image is the same. What's the time? Oh, 37. Okay, so next time we are in the middle of this para, we'll discuss the two Upanishadic principles and also the Rig Veda. Okay, they are all there. This image is there of the two birds. So we'll take it up next time because we have gone beyond our time. 8:37. Okay, so this is the Gita harmonizes Vedanta as well as Sankhya. It also harmonizes, that's why Sri Aurobindo calls it a synthesis. It also harmonizes Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Okay, it is synthetic in two ways. Okay, so we stop here today, and I wish all of you a very happy day. Okay, enjoyment, but try not to be so sorrowful.
Thank you, Rangadhar.
Okay.